But it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, is it time to house migrants in tents? Figures released by the Home Office this week have revealed that the cost of housing migrants in hotels has risen from 7 million to 8 and that's a day since March. That's how much it's costing. I mean, that's despite the government promising to reduce the use of hotels whilst asylum seekers have their claims processed. Meanwhile, Italy has announced a wave of tough new measures to deter illegal immigrants after more than 10,000 arrived on the Italian island of Lampedusa this week. This has just a 6,000 population. And amongst the measures introduced by Giorgia Meloni's government are increasing the amount of time people can be detained to 18 months from 3 months, and making migrants pay €5,000 to avoid detention whilst their asylum claim is processed. Although that probably wouldn't work here because they wouldn't pay it because they're in 3-star hotels. In contrast, one Afghani migrant said in an interview that he felt like a king after being housed in a 4-star hotel near Wigan alongside 100 other migrants who entered the UK illegally on a small boat. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to house migrants in tents? Remember, Suella Braverman did buy, I think it was 2,000 of them. To discuss this, I'm joined by Ivan Sampson, he's an immigration lawyer, Suzanne Evans, political commentator, Lois Perry, political commentator. Well, I'm going to start with Suzanne Evans because, you know, Suella Braverman in July bought, I think it was 2,000 tents. And other countries, for example, France, they're housed in big marquees. Why can't we do that here?
Yeah, absolutely. Chicago's doing it as well. They spent 29 million. That's only a few days of the cost of housing migrants here in hotels. They're talking about building 6 tent cities in Chicago, housing between 250 and 1,400 migrants. Will it work here? Well, I think, to be honest, I don't see why we shouldn't do it, but the problem is it won't stop the pull factor. It won't stop these people coming. And that's the ultimate solution that we've got to find, is stopping the boats. And at the moment, the government's failing abysmally on that.
You don't think it'll stop the pull factor if they think that they're going to be housed in a tent?
I don't think it will.
You don't think it will?
I don't think it will, because I don't think it's going to happen anyway. You know, we've had this edict from the Home Office saying they've got to be housed in 3-star hotels. If they're watching the news, and I'm sure they are, then they know actually it's probably not going to happen because, frankly, this country hasn't got the will, I don't think, or at least the people in government don't have the will to make them pay.
There's too many lawyers like Ivan Sampson. He's an immigration lawyer. Ivan, what's your thoughts on this then? I mean, is it time we need to rethink the strategy? What would be so bad about housing them in marquees instead of what we currently have?
Well, the legal obligation under Section 95 of the Immigration and Nationality Act is to provide safe and secure accommodation to asylum seekers while their asylum claims are being processed, so that they're not destitute. Now, asylum seekers don't really have a choice of where they're accommodated, neither in terms of the quality or the location. That's down to the government. They can't really refuse it. But I agree with your commentator that the problem is the pull factor, because if when somebody gets here, whether their asylum claim is they're granted asylum or not, they're not removed. That is the problem. So if you've had your asylum claim refused, you're still going to be allowed to remain here, and that's the pull factor. Look, genuine asylum seekers should be allowed to come to the UK, have their asylum claims processed, be accommodated for a few weeks in temporary accommodation, then move into permanent long-term accommodation once their asylum claim is processed, and be allowed to work so they can fend for themselves. It's the disgenuine asylum seekers, they're coming here knowing full well that they're not going to be removed. And I mean, the estimates are between 750,000 and 1 million people already in the country who are here legally. And that's not counting the asylum seekers that are already here. None of them are being removed. So this is a problem the Home Office has to tackle and have agreements with the EU to remove people and other countries to where they came from.
Well, what about Giorgia Meloni's plan? She is basically charging them €5,000. That's a good idea, surely, Ivan. Is that a good idea?
Well, if you've got the money, great. But what if someone hasn't got the money to pay? Then what happens? If you're fleeing persecution and you're fleeing fear for your life and safety, I don't think that's going to stop anyone coming here because of a £5,000 surcharge.
You don't think? Well, at least they'd pay, but at least But at least they'd be paying for it. Like, I would have asked Lois. Lois, I mean, they'd be paying for it. We get £5,000 out of them at least. I mean, they're prepared to pay the traffickers, so we get £5,000 out of them, and then they can... Yeah. Lois.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, number one, I don't think that hardly any of these young single men are actually fleeing persecution of any kind whatsoever. But also, if we actually start putting them in tents and stuff, don't we make the UK look like a big refugee camp, you know? But we must remember this is a global problem at the moment. Everyone is on the move. There is an exodus from all the countries going into Europe. But also, I'm in the States at the moment talking to senators and stuff about climate change policy in the UK and the US. And they've had 6 million immigrants coming this year. So, you know, the world is on the move. Unfortunately, quite a lot of them seem to be moving across our channel. You can't have open borders and a benefit system. You have to either have one or the other. You can't have both. But charging them, they've already spent the money on the traffickers, haven't they? They haven't got any money left, I should imagine.
I mean, it just seems like such a mess, Suzanne, that we even when we do come up with something, there's a whole legal system that stops us from doing anything. You talked about stopping the boats. Do you think Keir Starmer's got a right idea when he's talking about a global police force? He's talking about a global agreement type thing, and do you think that's...
Yeah, I mean, there has got to be some kind of global response.
Sorry, Suzanne.
Because in a sense, this could just about be seen as some kind of good news story. The fact is now we have developing countries that are becoming much more middle class. And that's why these people can afford to pay people traffickers to actually leave their country. Whereas, of course, previously, that's just not been an option that's been open to people. So in a sense, this is a success of the world actually changing in a very positive way because people overall are becoming wealthier. The problem, I think, with Starmer's view is that there isn't the global will there at the moment. People seem to want to push the problem on to some other country. Giorgia Meloni's plan, it's all very well, but why should they pay £5,000 and then have their freedom? We don't know where these people are coming from. We know from past experience that some of them are criminals, or if they might not have criminal records, they certainly behave like criminals when they get here. And again, it's just about stopping the boats and stopping the pull factor. And until that's addressed, your point, Nana, I think about the legal-ness of this is quite interesting. Whenever the government says, oh, it's the lawyers, it's the legal system, it's blah-de-blah-de-blah, what I hear is we're not strong enough or tough enough to govern and solve that problem. I think it's a bit of a cop-out.
Well, yeah, well, we'll see what happens anyway. Well, thank you so much for your thoughts, Suzanne Evans, political commentator, Ivan Sampson, immigration lawyer, and Lois Perry, out in America, political commentator. Thank you so much for joining us.